When he was 12 years old, Alam Khan saw his father killed by Mohammed Race. 12 years later, when Khan was 24, he enacted his revenge. Race went to Khan's house for repair work, but he didn't come back. Khan told reporters that he got Race drunk off of liquor. He then killed him and cut Race's body while blasting music into 12 pieces, one for every year he had to wait. The body parts were then stuffed into polybags and dumped in the Ramganga. The body was discovered and Amir Hussain identified the corpse. Police then raided Khan's house and arrested him. So all this happened 2 to 3 months ago, so sorry for the limited details. Context: my dad has earned a lot of respect in our local area as he will always help his friends with anything they need, so without exaggeration there are a fairly large number of regulars at our local pub that would happily do the same for him. And I mean it, as they would most likely happily go to prison to look after my parent, my sister and me. Anyways, I do a lot of walking, both when home and at uni, and I was walking through our local park at home, and I noticed someone following me. Basically I'm more or less bricking it as I'm not willing to get my phone out in case he takes it, and I'm in the least populated area of the park, where we are the only 2 people. I decide to speed up, so that hopefully more people will act as a deterrent. The guy starts talking BS to me, saying he needs help as his brother got stabbed. I knew he was talking rubbish as he was perfectly calm and relaxed, and I walked past him 2 minutes ago chatting with his mate. I tell him to leave me alone, and he kicks out at me, taking my legs away and making me basically land with my full weight on my left knee. Got that hurt. When my adrenaline ran out, I got up because I didn't want to be kicked to a pulp and made my way over to a dog walker who had just entered this area of the park. He allowed me to get to the cafe where I called my sister. She and my mum come pick me up from there and took me home. I put an ice pack on my ankle because him booting it as hard as he could made it bend wrong. Could still use it, so knew it was fine. Anyways, my mum called my dad, who was at the pub with his mates, the ones who are willing to do anything to keep my sister and I safe. My mum relayed a very basic description from me to him, and not long later he was home due to worry. My ankle kept seizing up by sitting on the sofa, so I got up and helped my mum with dinner. At this point it seizing up was more painful than standing. While helping I went to get something from the fridge. Our fridge is in the lounge right next to the kitchen, but not actually in the kitchen, and my dad pulled me aside and said that his friends had caught up to the guy that did it and got revenge for me. They asked if he had gotten into an altercation with someone in the park. He said yes, and they threw him to the ground, stomped on his hands and phone, and threw his earphones down the drain. Fallout: every time I walk through that park, especially that bit of it which I've only gone through twice in nearly 3 months, I get irrationally nervous and pay extreme amounts of attention to everyone I see. Never saw him again though. I have also been left with a knee that hurts every now and then, as well as if I accidentally bend it in certain ways that are usually fine. Again, I'm not worried about it as, while at uni, I walk nearly 10 miles a day and only occasionally need to stop to let it rest. Moral of this story: don't F with people if you don't think you can deal with a group of alcohol-fueled Londoners who are protective of your victim and his family. Characters: C's sister, how unexpected, never drinked or took any kind of drug, and never smoked weed before. Dan, bastard, destroyed life guy, he is weed dealer on his school. Me, medic emergency. So let's start. We live in small city with primary school only. I was already out of school, but my younger sister was still in. She went to class with one guy that had some problems with cops before. Remember that? On end of school year, all classes that was ending had small party to finally ending this BS, as they called it. There were something about 60 people and they started to drink. Everyone on that party was under age of 18. In that age you can already drink alcohol legally. Start in shortcut. As they were drinking, he wanted her in another universe. He drugged her and raped her. After party we had to search for her. We found her sleeping in forest. She had blood all over her clothes. We called an ambulance and they took her to hospital. She had some broken bones, scratches, marks from choking and something with her asterisk. Hospital called police and it started. She told them almost all, from where did they bought alcohol etc, and then told us other parts. parts like people that were on party and who was swinging around her. As she told us about Dan, I almost exploded from all that madness in my soul. But I said to myself, he almost killed her. You have to show him his part of it. Planning the revenge in shortcut. Plan started to form in my head. My neighbor was police officer. This is important later. I told my friends in town every time they see him to call me. They did it almost every day. Plan was easy. Every time I saw him, I would call my neighbor to check someplace. I knew he was almost all day high. I knew places where he smoked weed. I knew that he could go high everywhere. Revenge part. This will be juicy. As I promised to my C's, I will destroy him. First strike was anonymous calls to police that I saw some underage kids drunk. My neighbor and other officers went there every single time and checked him. Once they got him high, problems started to Dan. As he had problems with police before, they took him to police station and kept him here for 8 hours, and all the time they were hard on him. He said some things, but didn't say from where he had weed. He went out with small fee, about 50 euros. After 2 weeks of all day calling police, I saw him in club. I went to him and told him, now you will have hell from your life and I will be last thing you'll see before you pass out. He got scared and left club immediately. Not important, but I wanted this here. I went to vacation for a week. I was planning how to make his life more crappy all the time. As I came back, magic started to happen. I went with my friends to shops. I literally saw him dealing weed in shop. So I called shop security. They had it on cameras. Now I thought, finally this guy will get all he deserves. Hell no. He got 1,000 euros fee and home checks every week. But this wasn't enough. I was still pissed. Pissed more than you could imagine. We went with friends to pub and we saw him. IDK, what happened to my mind? I was drunk and I had enough of him. I came behind him and took his hand. We went to toilets. First I was only pissed, but then we argued little bit more loudly, but he wanted to leave. I stood in front of him and said, you are not going out of here. He pulled knife out of his pocket and only thing that was on my mind was you or him. My eyes saw red. Adrenaline went through my body. He wanted to go and started walking to me. I gave him first punch directly to that triangle between ribs. He couldn't breathe. Then second punch directly on nose. He fell on ground. I crouched and started to beat crap of him. I can't exactly tell if he went off, but after half minute of punching him, someone striked and pulled me of him. I went simply off the pub. They had to call ambulance. He had broken several ribs, broken chin. He was on intensive care for a week. Day after this, police showed up at my door. They wanted to talk with me. But then my hero neighbor came to them and said he wasn't in pub. We were drinking on my porch. This guy saved my butt. I can't thank him enough. What happened next to Dan? He got arrested after a month for selling drugs. Then he went to jail for young delinquents for a year and a half. My revenge was done. Then I said to my sister what I did. She didn't cry. She came to me and hugged me and said thanks for beating crap of him. In high school I had several classmates who were very well developed and underage, 14-year, and the German teacher took notice. A lot of the girls got more attention from him. He would bend over their desks in such a way that he could sneak a peek, and he was just generally being a creep. One day we got some tests back, and right away we noticed something odd. The chesty girls all got higher grades than the rest of us. Even the kid who was super good at German got a lower grade than them. I went to the principal with a few other classmates who were ticked off that our hard work wouldn't pay off, and these girls got a free ride, and we were told, well, that's just life. They probably studied hard for this test. Spoiler alert, they didn't, and were pretty confused about their high grades. We began talking during another class and we noticed some trends. During the class quizzes, they got the easier questions. Their tests were graded more softly than the rest. And the part that weirded most of them out, he spent a lot more time close to them to point something out in the textbook. These girls loved the easy grades, but they were no sluts and did not appreciate the teacher acting like a creep. So I gave them an idea: collect some statements, make a video of him helping another female student, and show it all to the principal. They happily complied, expecting the teacher to get a stern talking to from the principal / someone with authority. So they filmed a teacher blatantly staring at a girl's boobs during class, getting too close for comfort with another one, and making weird comments. When they showed the principal, he told them that he saw nothing wrong and to just focus on schoolwork. They were rightfully pissed off, and we talked it over with nearly the entire class, because at this point we were all invested in this. And that's when I got a bright idea: we should all show that video to our parents, or post it on social media or something. The following week we were told the teacher was on sick leave, and a few weeks later the temporary replacement told us he was fired, but wouldn't say what for. We had our suspicions though. It wasn't until after I graduated that I heard the full story from an ex-classmate who actually bothered to investigate it. The day after we blasted that video on social media, the school was bombarded with phone calls from parents asking why that teacher still has a job, if he's a pedophile, why they'd allow a pedophile to work there, etc. They were furious. The teacher was fired on the spot, and the police investigated him because of all the worried parents thinking he was a pedophile. I did not expect what they uncovered though. The guy actually possessed child porn. Like, little kids. At the time he was still awaiting trial. It had been postponed several times, and I have been unable to find info on his case, so I don't know what his sentence was. I've heard his wife divorced him as soon as she found out. So he lost his job, future, wife, and reputation all because he played favorites at school. I went to a sort of pre-bachelorette party for a sorority sister who I hadn't seen in a while, and who turned out to be a complete Bridezilla *TCH. One of our other friends from college is pregnant from a one-night stand, and does not know who the father is, but is keeping the baby. Bridezilla figured out that she is going to be about 8 months pregnant at the wedding and won't let her be a bridesmaid. She was really nasty and called her a tramp and said she should have gotten an abortion. The girl got really upset and left. Almost everybody else did too. One of the girls out partying with us is a nurse practitioner. She invited the remaining girls back to her apartment. I don't know what she gave Bridezilla, but she was out cold really fast. That's where it got really weird. I had had way too much to drink and crashed on the couch when the other girls left. I woke up a couple of hours later looking for the bathroom, and I walked in on the nurse and Bridezilla. Bridezilla was still out cold, but the nurse had her naked from the waist down and on the bed with a bunch of pillows under her and her legs spread like she was giving her a gyno exam. I then saw her hold something up and laugh, and I realized what she had just done. She had removed Bridezilla's IUD. I got really upset at first and started yelling at her that she was a psycho, so she just flushed it down the toilet and reminded me that if I said anything Bridezilla would probably have both of us arrested. I realized she was right, of course, and it didn't help I was really drunk. When she saw I was backing down, she laughed and explained that her IUD was the copper kind with no hormones to stay behind in her body to prevent ovulating, and that with any luck Bridezilla would be showing a baby bump by her wedding day. At first I was going to keep my mouth shut, but I had second thoughts and felt guilty and tried to contact Bridezilla later to warn her somehow, but she wouldn't return my calls and texted me that she was angry at me for inviting our pregnant friend out that night. She texted some really nasty things about her. So I decided Bridezilla really deserved what was coming to her. But I didn't want to bring an unwanted baby into the world. I spread a rumor that she had gotten really drunk that night and told us she was getting her IUD removed because she wanted to make sure her fiancé was on the hook with the baby just in case he got cold feet before the wedding. Word got back to him, and he insisted on checking for her strings himself and then dragging her to the walk-in clinic when he couldn't feel them. By the end of her exam the wedding was off. Word is she just got a D&C. So not only did we get revenge on her for being a total B*TCH, we also saved a nice guy from a bad marriage. I screwed his brains out last weekend. He deserved it, and so did she. Let me start off by saying, when this story happened, my parents educated me on don't trust strangers on the internet, but never talked about internet friends. They assumed I would stay a local and only talk to people I knew. They were very wrong in assuming so. This story includes loads of backstory, but I'll take some of the less important parts out to shorten it. Obviously none of these names are real. All of it is really important to the story. Summer going into freshman year, I had just joined the girls varsity swim team. I had a few friends from middle school on the team, but one of the girls I was closer to than the others. Let's call her Tiffany. Tiffany and I started hanging out more and more, and eventually I became a part of her circle. This was around the time that Kick was huge, and she added me to the group chat with a lot of her internet friends. It was at this point where I was introduced to the catfish, who we'll call Kevin. He lived in the next state over and was a main participant in the group chat. Very easy to like because of his banter and his good attitude. Kevin was online dating a friend who we'll call Angelica. She was a part of Tiffany's circle and was in the group chat with us. As time went on, Kevin took an interest to me, and soon we became friends outside of the fateful group chat. We talked every day, at least 3+ hours on the phone, and eventually I introduced him to some of my other friends around my town. He ended up becoming friends with people in at least 7 different schools in my district, and most of my freshman class knew who he was. The most notable of all of my friends who I introduced to Kevin was Patricia. Patricia was a year younger than me, but was still one of my closest friends. And unfortunately she got dragged down almost as much as I did. Soon he broke up with Angelica. Patricia and I both fell in love with Kevin. Being young and stupid, blindly ignoring the red flags, not showing his face on FaceTime, blatantly manipulative, a genuine fine sociopath and psychopath. The one red flag that bothered all of us was him refusing to show his face because he was too ugly. Eventually, he started sending pictures of this gorgeous, and to this day still is, football player, 62, blonde hair, blue eye, the whole deal. Neither of us cared to even pay attention to how weird the situation was. He ended up turning us against each other and lied to both of us anytime we asked about the other girl. All of my friends hated me, and I was left alone, only with Kevin in my life. I soon isolated myself and became very suicidal. Kevin took advantage of my feelings for him by constantly telling me to kill myself, which I soon attempted and ended up in the psych ward for. He also manipulated me into sending nude pictures. Mind you, this all happened between October to April. After I was cleared to go home, I got my phone back and decided I needed to repair the bridges that were burned. I texted Patricia and asked how she was doing, trying to make amends. Immediately she texts back apologizing for being so distant, and then asks if I have talked to Kevin recently. I said yes, that we had been dating for months. She absolutely lost it. She FaceTimed me, and we talked for hours about everything Kevin had said to us to turn us against each other, how messed up everything was. I felt so angry, powerless and hurt by everything that had happened. I asked Patricia if I could confront Kevin with the information I had. She agreed. I texted Kevin saying some pretty nasty things, saying I never wanted to talk to him again, and if he talked to Patricia I would send people after him. Kevin retorted, saying if I told Patricia what I knew, he had no idea any of the info I had came from her. He would make a group chat full of at least 50 people from every school in my district, send my nudes into it, and tell everyone who I slept with. Kevin knew I was raped the beginning of the year, but wanted everyone to think I was a liar. He was the only person I told, and used it against me. I called him bluff, and told Patricia what he said. We both didn't believe he would do anything, so she confronted him. The next morning he did exactly what he said he was gonna do. My parents found out, and it was the absolute worst moment in my life. It doesn't stop there. In August a few of my friends found out he was a catfish, except in a different way. He used his real name. He was our age, but the blonde blue-eyed boy wasn't him. He was a fat white kid and absolute trailer trash. Absolutely horrified with how everything worked out, everyone started moving on with their lives, but I couldn't. I was so angry I felt like I could make the devil himself cry. I wanted revenge, bad, but I had no idea how. I looked at the laws in both states and both were very lenient on the offender. I couldn't go to the police. I couldn't talk to my parents because I could never tell them the real story. All they knew was that I sent nude pictures to a boy and they got sent around. So I waited 3 years for my moment. Now throughout these 3 years we all kept tabs on Kevin and we all drove away any potential girlfriend he would come into contact with. But there was this one girl, who we'll call Katie, who didn't believe anything we said. Kevin met Katie halfway through my sophomore year of high school. We laid out all the evidence for her, and she still refused to believe us. At that point we began harassing her, almost to the point of cyberbullying. Trust me, I'm not proud of this at all, but we had no clue what else to do to drive her away from him. She eventually blocked us, but several months later it happened. Katie texted all of us, saying we were right and how he was an absolute effing psychopath. She also said he raped her in her sleep, and when she woke up he strangled her until she was unconscious. The next day she woke up to multiple texts of him apologizing profusely for what he did, and sent pictures of him cutting himself. She had evidence of this, but was terrified to go to the police, because he also threatened her life if he ever told anyone. This fueled the fire, and now I formed a plan to effing destroy him. I told her I wanted to help her, but in no way pushed her to do what happened next. The revenge. I told my parents I was spending the night at Patricia's. We drove the 5.5-hour drive to his hometown and met with Katie. I explained that if she went to the police now, she would give other girls a chance to be saved. I guaranteed her protection and she finally agreed. We went to the local police station that night, and I helped her file a report. The police said they would bring him in for questioning and such, but there was no guarantee they would be able to press charges. Even with the photos and the texts, there was no DNA and no rape kit, because it was weeks later. After we left, Katie had another brilliant idea. She said a friend from school told her he was talking to a new girl who still had a boyfriend. This boyfriend had really bad anger issues and Katie said she had proof of his girlfriend cheating. So she sent me the proof, his number, and on one of those phone number apps I sent it to Kevin's lover's boyfriend. The text said Kevin's full name and address. Patricia and I left, and for 2 days it was silent. We later found out that the boyfriend grabbed a couple buddies, went to his house, beat him senseless, nothing major, just a lot of bruising, and a black eye, and destroyed his car. At the hospital, police questioned him, and he attempted to assault one of the officers for accusing him of something he didn't do. He was then arrested after the hospital cleared him. His family was too poor to bail him out, so while he was in jail the police had a warrant to search his phone and laptop to find any evidence they could of the sexual assault. Not only did they find the texts corroborating Katie's story, they found my nudes along with Patricia's, Angelica's and at least 10 other girls who were very underage. Since he was a legal adult at the time the pictures were found on his computer, he was also charged with possession of child pornography. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I sent in a written testimony, as did Patricia and Angelica. I also sent as much proof as I could to Katie's lawyer, to set a precedent on character. It was all entered in as evidence anonymously per my request. Kevin's family didn't have enough money for a lawyer, so the public defender was his only option. He tried to plead consent, which didn't work. After the trial was over, I got a text from Katie thanking me because Kevin was found guilty and had been sentenced to 30 years in prison without chance of parole on one count of sexual assault in the first degree, which is considered a felony in his state, possession child pornography in the third degree, felony, and assault of an officer, class D felony. He will never be able to have a job, family of his own, or live in his hometown again without being treated like garbage. His mother, who herself is an absolute lunatic, has lost all of her friends and is now homeless and carless. She lost everything due to the amount of money she had to pay to the court in his name, which was around $100,000. It was supposed to be paid out in small payments at a time, but again, his family is very poor and couldn't afford the trailer they lived in anymore. His mother also played a huge role in everything, pushing him to assault Katie because women are sluts and men deserve sex if they're offering. I don't feel bad for his mother. Looking back now, almost a year later, everything seems so surreal. I'm not ashamed of anything except harassing Katie because she's a good friend with a really good heart. She's coping slowly but surely. I make time to call her every day and check on her, and she's now going to a big university for teaching. Kevin to this day has no idea it was me who set everything up. I might visit him in federal prison one day just to see the look on his face and tell him it was me who absolutely destroyed his life. But for now, I'm satisfied just knowing he's rotting in there. If you enjoyed the stories, slap the like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.